We're using the one with the promise. Yeah, you can use either
It
one.
gave
But
errors. It gave a whole bunch of errors
you
whenever
can,
I tried to install
well, even if you use just basic like bcrypt versus bcrypt as promised, you can write the exact same
it.
code.
What
Yeah.
is the difference? Is there any major difference?
No.
Why is decrypt as promised way less popular?
I mean, there's so many of like the exact same thing that you can use anyway. There's really not a big difference. So, okay, so we're gonna start by creating our server.js, and then go ahead and run our npm init-y.
What are we doing?
How does the name?
So demo
How does
or
the server feel?
validation.
How does the server feel?
Yeah, you touched the server.
Oh, it feels fine.
I did.
Okay.
Okay, would you like it back? You can I'll sit over here.
Okay.
I don't want to be a thief.
Let's see what we get.
Whoops.
No, I said.
That's not what I wanted
Or
to
do
do.
you want to be punched?
No, I said.
Yeah, you can get like.
That's where it contaminated. That's right.
Ah,
Oh yeah, I'm moving over to
Radiation, nice.
Yeah, I'm over here.
I'm okay with contamination as long as you don't punch me.
Nate, are you recording this?
I am. Yep.
Okay, better.
Okay. So let's create our server.js. We'll get our package.json going here. Alright, and I accidentally did that at the root of my project, so I had a whole bunch of stuff going on, but there we go. Much better.
That was so rude of you.
I know. This is going to be a long day. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and install a bunch of stuff. What are we going to need?
Secret.
Express,
EJS.
Mongoose, EJS,
Parse.
Body parser.
body parser,
Flash.
Session.
Express session,
Express Flash.
Express flash,
Bcrypt as promised.
Decrypt as promised.
You need path or no? Probably not.
No.
Not yet, right?
You don't have to install. Actually, you don't have to. You can require it without installing it. Alright, cool. So we don't necessarily need sockets on this one. I'm not going to do anything with it, but we could also install it. Alright, so while that's going, let's go ahead and start. Let's make this a little bigger. Not that big. Let's start grabbing everything we need.
I noticed that on videos I was watching, you spelled comes from, that they use router instead of app as the word.
You can use whatever you want. It's literally just a variable name. Yeah. Alright, what else do I need to put in here?
I'll require all those things you just installed,
Require
right?
session.
Okay.
Flash.
See if we can remember all of them without looking it up.
Decrypt.
Bcrypt equals
Body parser.
require bcrypt as promised. So mongoose. I don't know why I keep doing that. Require mongoose.
EJS.
Okay, so we need to set up EJS, right? So we'll say app.set. What is it? Okay, what else?
Use static folders and all that.
Yeah.
Business, which I don't remember right.
Use
Static. Thunder.
Okay. What else?
For static. Yeah,
Okay.
the same thing too, right?
App dot what?
App dot-
Use
Okay.
static.
Then what do I put in here? There you go. Express.static. And then path.join. Name and static.
That's true.
Alright.
You have to create the session. The
Have that use Flash.
Set.
It's like you call a function Flash.
Yeah, that's right. There's so many, I forget them all. Okay.
for session we have to create the secret key and all that stuff too.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
I don't remember that either.
Like,
Yes, let's before we forget app.listen. And I'm going to start using arrow functions. Okay, now I think we briefly went over them. Does everybody remember roughly what an arrow function is?
Same as writing function.
It's the same as writing a function, but we do it in a slightly different manner. So, so we do this guy right here, and this is kind of a shortcut for writing. Instead of just writing an anonymous function, we can use an arrow function in its place. And you'll see these used all the time in Angular. So I'm going to start using them here, so we kind of get used to. the idea. What was that?
Arguments are within the parentheses.
Yep, arguments within the
So
parentheses.
you just don't name them.
Yeah.
It just cuts out that whole function.
Yeah. Yeah, then it actually changes. There's some differences with scope and stuff as well, but we're not going to get too deep into
You
that.
have to set your server.
I think it was just replacing the function parentheses. That is it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's go look at session because I forget all the configuration on session.
Not use session.
There we go.
Oh yeah.
Would you normally set like a regex for your secret key or something weird?
Yeah.
Okay. Nice regex.
Thank you.
Hard one to remember.
Cool. It's a very secure secret key. All right. Anything else that we're missing here?
Your
You want to do our initial
index
index?
page.
Or are you doing
Like as far as our configuration things.
the bcrypt install stuff?
Bcrypt.
Then you have to do stuff with that. To use it.
Do stuff with it.
I installed the other bcrypt one. So.
Oh yeah, no, you're good. What was that, Trevor?
Oh, I'm just telling Bailey.
Oh, okay, cool. I don't know if you had a contribution here. Cool. All right. I'm sure we're missing something, but
Express validator install that.
yeah, we can install Express Validator. We can install all sorts of stuff. We actually need no listening. We need to set the body parser stuff, and I always forget this as well. I know. There we go.
Can you explain what the extended true is? Where
You can look in the documentation and read all about it.
that means I forget.
That means if I tell you now, you still won't remember. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our first function going here. Okay, so we'll have it render index. Okay, so we need to come over, create our views folder and our static folder, and that should not be inside of views. There we go, and index.ejs. Okay. Login and registration. All right, and so let's go ahead and we'll just do create a couple little things here just so that we can see our page. Okay.
Can you
So-
use that and like that
Oh, is that?
in the title?
Yeah, it'll be fine. Okay, so let's go ahead. What are the things we need to turn on here?
Your node.
Your Mongo.
Okay, so Mongod. Okay, what else?
Mongo.
Yeah, we don't need more. Yeah, and we'll turn on our server.js.
Database in your on your server file. Did you set the path for that? Like
Oh,
the
good,
name of the
yeah.
database?
Good catch. I did not. Mongoose.connect, and it's what? Mon. Eh.
Something like the host.
Mongo
Yeah, it's slash-
slash
Yeah.
Localhost.
slash local.
Mongoose. Okay,
Down.
there we go. right. What do we want to name our database? It's so boring. All right.
Okay, cool.
So boring. Okay. All right, so let's see here. We are getting an error. So I like errors because it gives us a practice of reading error messages. Okay, so let's see if we can figure out what this error message is doing. Router.use requires a middleware function but got a string. Okay, so let's see if we can find out where this all came back to. All right. So what I like to do when I'm reading error messages is look for the file that I wrote. Okay, because chances are it's not in a file that I'm importing. It could be, but in this situation, I'm going to assume that I made the mistake, right? It's not a mistake that was made by one of these other packages. Okay, so if I look, here we go. I have a server.js line 20. Okay, so let's come to look at line 20, and it looks like this is giving me an error.
That or something above it, right? Is that the...
Yeah, it could always also be here. I'm not seeing anything. Are these reversed? Line 19. Okay. Flash is not defined. Okay, so they're both set. So now let's move down to line 24. Wired Express Flash. Yay, we solved our errors. Okay, cool. So I'm sure we'll run into more, but that seems like we have all of that set up correctly. So now that that's running, let's go ahead and woohoo! All right, we see our page. Okay, so we're gonna let's set up just a basic login and registration form. Okay, so we'll send this one to /login, and this is just going to have an email, email name equals email, and we'll do the same thing with password. Okay, and let's add in our submit button, and then I'm going to actually just copy this, change that to registration, and we'll add in a name. And a password confirmation down here.
Set the method too, right?
Yes, we do. All right. Method equals post. Method equals post. All right. Pretty straightforward. Anybody have questions about this creation of form? Hopefully not. All right, there we go. So we have our nice little looking login registration form. So let's go ahead and create the methods that will handle this. So registration, and app.post/login. Okay. So let's do the registration first. So I always like to just start by getting a picture, making sure that all of our information is actually coming through in the way that we're expecting. Okay, so we'll come in here, throw in a bunch of data. All right. So if I look, there we go. Name, email, password confirmation. Perfect. That means everything is coming through in the way that I want. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you need to create a server, database blueprint? What's it called?
A schema?
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to create a schema. Right? So I just wanted to do this real quick to make sure that my form is going. So once I start submitting things into my schema, I know that the actual information is coming in. All right. So on that note, let's go do that. All right. So we will say User schema is equal to what? New mongoose.schema. Perfect. Okay, so we'll give it a, what do we have? We have a name, and we'll say it's a type string. We'll say that it's required, and we'll give it a little error message and say that name is required.
Should it be capitalized?
True should not be capitalized. Good catch. Okay. We could also do something like a min length of, let's say 3, and name must be at least 3 characters. Okay, and let's go ahead and toggle word wrap. Okay, okay, we'll add in an email, type string, and we can add in more validations here in a minute. For right now, I'm just gonna give this one required true. Email is required. What was that? Unique is different. Unique doesn't work, and that's actually, this is a good thing to talk about. Mongoose validators. All right, validation. So we have a few built-in validators, right? So you can see that the all schema types have the required validator built in. Okay. Numbers have min and max validators. Strings have enum, match, max length, and min length validators. Okay. And the unique option is not a validator. Okay. Important thing to know. You can see it's a convenient helper for building MongoDB unique indexes. Do you want to know what MongoDB unique indexes are? There's a whole bunch of documentation that you can read about it. Okay. But it is not, unique does not work in the same way that it does in Rails. Okay.
You just validate in your create then, right?
Yeah, we can validate it in our create. Exactly. All right, then we have password, and we'll also say type string required is true. Password is required. All right, pretty straightforward, right? Nothing too crazy. I can also come in here, add in a timestamps is true, and that will automatically create a created at and updated at for me, right? And they're in the format of created at, like that. Same thing with updated at. So it's not the underscore. It is it's JavaScript, so we do the camel case here. Perfect. So now that I have that, let's go ahead and we'll say user equals mongoose.model user schema. All right. So now I should be able to start. Creating these validations. All right. Now, the first thing that I want to do is when I get this information in, right, I'm going to leave that print there. All right, what are some of the checks that I want to make? Yeah, so I'm actually just going to start and say if rec.body.password is equal to rec.body.password confirmation. All right, so right off the bat, if they miss that, I'm just going to say, hey, let's throw them back an error right away.
If the email exists in the database already?
Yeah, so we can now, we could definitely run that, right? So we can say user, so if the password matches, then I'm going to say user.find email is equal to rec.body.email. Okay, and we will have our error or user that comes back to us. Practice using our arrow function. Okay, now if that user already exists, how should I check that?
Have something in user.
Yeah.
It gives you a result.
All right, so we should just be able to say if user, right, meaning that there's a value in there. We could also say, let's actually do this right now. All right. So we have no users in the database, right, which means that we shouldn't be able to find this specific user. So let's go ahead and just print this out so that we can see what exactly comes back from the Mongoose database, or Mongo database, excuse me, when it can't find that value. Okay, so we'll come back to here, refresh. Okay, so I hit that. All right, so we can see that it returned us a blank array. All right, so there's a few different things that we could run, but let's just go ahead and say if user.length is 0, right? Because user is an array and the length should be 0. All right. The other thing I could do before we do that, let's actually, once again, we're going to print out user. Now in this case, what if we did find 1? Right. Yeah, so we should be able to say, okay, once again, in this case, it actually didn't do anything.
Yeah, the password.
Oh, good catch, good catch. Okay, there you go. We have null. All right, so we can use either one. In this case, let's use a find 1. All right, and instead of saying using the length, let's go ahead and let's go ahead and say if user, because that's a little bit nicer, right? Null is a faulty value, so if it returns null, it will not go into this. Right. So just to make our code look a little prettier. All right, so if the user, actually what we want to say, if there's not a user, okay, because we want this to run if it's null, then what do we want to start doing? We're going to create the user. Yeah, so this was a little bit backwards, but we're saying if there's not a user, meaning if it is null, then we're going to do something, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just create a new instance of the user class, and I'm going to say user.name equals rec.body.name, and user.email equals rec.body.email. All right. Now this is where the bcrypt where bcrypt is going to come into play, okay? Because what I want to do is take this password and hash it, and then use the hashed version to save this user. All right. So let's go ahead, and if we look at, let's come into our authentication and look at our bcrypt, right? And there's basically this hashing function. Now, whether you use bcrypt as promised or just bcrypt, you can actually follow this exact same method. They named everything the same. Both allow the use of promises, right? And so if we look here, all that's happening is saying, it's kind of what we talked about earlier, is we're saying hash this password. If the hash is successful, run this callback. If the hash is unsuccessful, run this callback. Yeah, go ahead.
Is the period at the front of then and check a change method?
Yeah, it's chained onto this hash. Yeah. Yep. So we can, it's probably actually better to do that so that it matches. Okay. So password from form, right? I need to change this. So this will be rec.body.password. Password. Okay, and then let's go ahead and just print out what our hash password is. No, it's the number of times, yeah, the number of salt rounds. So it's basically the like adding extra complexity to the hash. Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and try this again and see what we see. Okay, and there we go. We now have our hash password, right? We got null back, which means it executed this. So I now have this hash password that I should be able to set equal to my user. Okay, so in here I'm going to say user.password is equal to hash password. And then that is, I believe, everything that I have in my schema, name, email, password. So I'm going to go ahead and run user.save. Okay. And just as before, I can get an error back from my on my callback. So I'll check if there is an error, then we'll come back and add this in. But for right now, let's just print it off. Else, we will go ahead and send back to the home page. Okay.
Why would there be an error at that
So this is where it would actually run all those validators. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So let's go ahead and create one. So we'll do a at a.com. All right. So here we go. User validation error, name must be at least 3 characters. So that's where it's actually checking and executing all those validation errors for us. So just to end the function, right? At any point, like I don't want it to run or check anything else, right? Our if-else statements should handle that, but just to be sure that nothing else happens, I'm just saying return. This is it. Be done.
So
Don't
with
do anything else.
the dot catch when I run.
Yeah, I mean the dot catch isn't going to run because it's chained to this promise. But just to ensure that if I accidentally left something else, right, we want to return this. Go ahead, Bradley.
Just to get a little more clarity though, the if error, instead of having user.save in the error, if we just did if error do this else save it.
You wouldn't get it, the error unless you're trying to save it.
Yeah, the error doesn't run. So there's in Mongoose. So we have this. Here we go. So it has all these functions, and we can actually write our own custom ones on these if we want to. But basically, it says before you save, execute a bunch of things. Right? When I run save, it's executing all those validators, and then before it actually saves to the database, it's saying if this validator returns false, then I'm going to basically break out of the save functionality. I won't let it save. So
If you do with dot create, you essentially
same thing, right? Same thing. It'll still run those. It should still run those validators. Yeah. Now it doesn't run on all of them. So if the validators aren't running, the first thing I would check is to see if the Mongoose function that you're calling actually runs the validators, because not all of them run every function. Yeah, go ahead.
When you create the password, is a triple equals sort of like case sensitive as opposed to a double equals?
In this case, no. That was just, I actually didn't even mean to put the trade equals there. Yeah. In this case, they're going to come through in the same format because it's from a form. You really could do double equals there, and it would be just the same. Yeah. All right. Any other questions about the bcrypt hashing part? Okay. So pretty straightforward. All we're saying is pass in the password, hash it, return once I get that back, then go ahead and I'm going to finish saving it.
What errors would you ever catch?
To be honest, I don't think I've ever created an error using bcrypt. We can find out. It may be.
is it when they try and like enter in?
Yeah, they could be something like if they enter in. Let's try doing this. I don't know if we, instead of, I'm gonna comment all this out real quick so we don't save anything. But yeah, let's pass in something like that. That actually may just throw us an undefined error, but let's find out. Yeah, it's not defined.
That's okay.
Yeah. I'll try and find one. I'm not sure. We could try. I don't know if we, like you said, if we do too many rounds, salt rounds. Go ahead, Sargon.
Is there any chance that you would trigger both then and catch at the same time?
No.
If that happens. At 9:55 time.
At 9:55.
But I'll show you after.
That's interesting.
Sorry, I'm looking at every
Yeah, I mean that still didn't fire an error, even if you
Password
did
was
that. Yeah, we could look. No, that was from earlier. Didn't seem to run that line.
It didn't get inside of that function.
But it also didn't run that. Let's see this.
You broke it.
Yeah, I wonder if that's just too big of a number. Just didn't throw an error, but it didn't do anything else either. You just can't do it 1,000 times, I guess. So, all right. Anyways, moving on from that nice little sidetrack. Okay. All right. So that is the login. That is the registration. Excuse me. Section of that. All right. Now, obviously, we haven't added in mini validations yet, but let's go ahead and check the. Let's check our logins functionality. Okay. So once again, first thing I'm always going to do. Test and make sure that the information is coming through correctly, and it is. All right, that's good. So let's go ahead and we're going to follow a similar pattern, right? So let's go ahead and say user.findOne and email is equal to rec.body.email. Okay. Now assuming that we found one. Oops. Okay. Let's do this. Okay. So once again, if there is a user, then what do we want to do?
Check the password.
Check the password. All right. So let's go come back here. All right, and we have a nice little compare function for us. All right. So if the user is there, then I'm going to compare rec.body.password with user.password. Perfect. Okay. Now I'll print out results. And we're not doing anything yet, but we'll say logging in. Error. And then same thing here. Okay, so if this all matches, then we should be good to go. All right, so let's, I don't even remember what the first person that we created was. So let's go ahead and we'll create somebody new. All right, and it looks like we got an error, so that's great. Can set headers after they're sent. Okay, so this is that problem of why we return. All right. Just give us a line as to where exactly it did it. Let's see. 64.
Is it a return statement? Because you're redirecting down below as well.
Yeah.
One at the very bottom.
We return.
Do you return or not? I feel like.
Because we printed that out.
Yeah, why do you do return? But I just write redirect.
So that
Oh, you did?
so that we honestly, so that this exact error doesn't happen, because Yeah, because once we have the return, the function should end.
You also have to have the if else only not user.
Okay, so everything still worked, but let's figure out why it's going. All right, so we know our login works at least, so that's nice. All right, logged ourselves in. So let's see if we can figure out why.
Is it because JavaScript was asynchronous and you had another res render outside of the other one? Like I think the one that he pointed out to delete.
Yeah, I think
it
you're
was
right.
after the if statement, and there was no else, so.
I think you're right. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so Jeff nailed on the head. So we had a res.redirect that was just kind of floating here in Oblivion. And so since all of these calls are asynchronous, it sent the call, but then once it finished, it came down here and sent that redirect. And then all these callbacks came in and added something else on top of it. That's, yeah, good catch. So that's why we want to, we'll put these in this else statement so that we're not not running into that problem. Cool.
So then with the if not user, so if there is a user,
yeah, so we'd want to have, once again, we would do,
add it to the flash message.
yeah, we would add some sort of flash messages. And for right now, we'll just say user exists, and then
We have to do the same thing with the password. Right? That's what the else statement is.
yeah, the
At the
catch.
bottom.
Yeah, we could do that. There's a lot of them. Okay, cool. So with that being said, though, so that adds a few more checks in there. But here we go. So now with that compare, literally all I have to do is pass in rect.body password and undo and user.password. Okay. Now when I log in, I'm obviously going to do something like rect.session.userid equals user.id. Okay. One thing to be careful of, don't do rect.session.id, okay, because that actually is accessing an ID attribute of the session, right? Each session has an ID, and so if you try to override ID and then later on access a user using that ID, that's going to throw you an error, okay? So rect.session.id is off limits. Call it user ID, user something, ID of user. Just don't use the actual word ID or you'll run into problems.
If we did a underscore ID, just
Um,
without user.
I think that should work. I've never tried that, but yeah, you can try. All right. So let's go ahead. Any questions about login and registration? All right, the process is not that different than any other time that we've ever done login and registration. Right? They're all essentially exactly the same. Here, if it's a successful save, then actually what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say error and new user and new user dot underscore ID. Okay. So on a save, the second argument will be the value or the object that you just saved. It will return the saved version to you. Okay. So in this case, once I know that it's saved, I'll use that saved object's ID and set it into session. Okay, and that is a login and registration setup for us. Okay, now when it comes to further validations, right? There's a number of different things we can do. Right, one is to say we'll add in password. Right, this validation is going to run on the hashed version, right? So if we want to have more password validations, then I would add them here, okay? Because we adding anything to that validator, the Mongoose validator, is going to be running those checks on the hashed version, right? Which is not what we actually want to do, right? We want to run those checks on the plain text version that our user sent to us. Okay, and so if we're going to add them in there, we can add it in here, right? We can do the ref.body.password.length is less than 8, right? Then we can go ahead and yell at them or whatever we wanted to. Okay. Now, I had a question earlier about which validators should we use, right? So we have this guy of Express Validator. We have Mongoose Email Validator. There's also one called, oh man, I'll look it up for you. It's
Validator.
what was that?
There's one just Validator, NPM Validator.
Yeah, NPM Validator, right? So there's all these different options. There you go, Express Validator, Express Validation, Mongoose Validator, Mongoose Type Email Validator, right? And so each one has its own usage that you can add in here. Okay. As far as which one is best, that's up to you to decide. Okay. Do a little bit of research because, to be honest, if you go to a meme shop, they'll probably have their own opinions about which one is the best. Okay, which one you should use. But as far as all of them are doing very similar things. Okay, and so what I would say is take a look at them and figure out which one looks the simplest or which one you like the validation on the best. Okay, or you can write your own library, right? Create your own set of validator functions that you want to add in. Okay, so if we come to here, you can actually see in Mongoose, I can write a custom validator function, right? And so here you go. We can see that literally I can say, if we were to add this in here to our schema, okay, I could say, and I'll drop this down another line, say validate, and then we literally just pass in a function. Okay, now this v is going to be the value that gets passed in, right? And basically I just return true or false with a message, right? And then there you go, I have my my custom validator, right? So I can say if v is equal to Tim, then we can return false. Else return true. And then inside of the message actually gets passed in as the second argument into this validator, right? So we have validate, validates, and then this is actually an object, validator function. Where does this function close? Right there, comma. Sometimes this thing's really annoying. Message. Pick a better name. Okay. Now let's make sure that everything closes. That closes. I think we might need to add in one more right there. Okay. So now let's go ahead and try adding in somebody with the name of Tim. Oops. There we go. User validation failed. Pick a better name. Okay, so we can use this validator to write our own custom ones. Right? If you don't like the validations that are present in anything else, then I can just go ahead and write something here. Go ahead, Tim.
With Python, you had to import why can't I think of it? The regex.
The regex.
Do you have to do that in?
I believe Mongoose already has. Let me double check on that. I don't think you do, but I will check and see if you have to import the regex, all the regex functionality. Yeah. All right. Any questions about these validators? Everybody feel okay about login and registration? Okay, cool. All right, last thing that I wanted to do a quick review over is subdocs or embedded documents in Mongoose. Okay, this can be a little bit confusing because it kind of steps away from everything that we've been doing before. All right, but we're going to create. We'll just do a little test post schema here. Mongoose.schema. Okay, and so this post is just going to have a title, which is going to be a string. Content will be string. And then we'll add in our comments, which is going to be an array. String. All right, then our comments, same thing. Okay, so we're going to say our comment is going to be a bunch of objects that have a title as well, or no, let's just say a name and a comment. Okay, so I have this kind of nested setup where I'm saying my post should have a title, content, and then it has all these comments that have, each comment is an object that has a name and a string. Okay, so I have this going on. How then can I do something with this? All right, so what I'm going to do is we're just going to keep adding a bunch of forms to this page, and this one will be called a message. And what did we have? Title, content. Okay, so now that I have this action message, let's go ahead and create the route here. app.post/message request response, and we'll say post var post equals a new post. Oops, I didn't register this. Const post equals mongoose model post schema. New post and pass in rect.body post.save. If there's no errors, then we'll say saved message, and then
Are you gonna get an issue with the if error without having to open and close curly braces?
no, because it's all in one line. Yeah, so I don't need those if it's all in a single line. You don't have to add. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if we can add in a post real quick. Okay, hello world. All right, cool. So we have this saved message, and let's actually open up sudo mongo. Use.
So boring.
I don't know how many O's I used. 3. Yeah. Okay, so db dot posts. All right, and there we go. So we can see that we have this our single single comment here, or excuse me, our single post here. Right. So how then can we start adding in comments to this, right? Because it's a part of this specific schema. All right. So we're going to go ahead and On here, in the index, I'm going to say post.find error posts and then we're going to do really bad practices and just go directly into adding posts in here. Now let's duplicate this form. I'm going to say /comment/ and then we're just going to put in posts at 0 _ID. Right. And this is going to be, what did we call this? Name and comment. Name, comment. All right. So we're going to refresh this. There we go. We can see our form down here. If I inspect, let's double check. All right, there we go. So we know our ID's there. So let's go ahead and add in our post. So let's say app.post /comment/ID, request response, and we'll find let's do this, find one, and we'll say ID is equal to rec.params.id. All right, so rec.params allows us to pull any parameters, URL parameters, and then we're just matching the name of it. And error, and this will just give us back a single post. Okay, once I have this single post, what I'm going to do then is now say post.comments.push_rec.body. Okay, and so what I'm doing is taking this object that I'm pulling from the form and adding it into this my array of comments. Okay. Now once I do that, since it's part of the post, all right, the post is the parent, then I need to save my parent, and we'll just do that. Okay. So once again, no validations here, but just for the sake of brevity, I add it into the comments, right? Push it into the comments, and then I save the comments using this this specific, or using the save of the parent. All right, and let's see if we run into any errors. Okay, I don't know which one is which. So if we come down here, okay. Add that in. Okay, you see we get any errors? Nope, no errors. So let's run this command again. Cool, so you can now see that I have this embedded object inside of it, and not only that, it actually adds an ID to that object. Okay, and so this is kind of where we are able to utilize relationships kind of while maintaining all of the cool speed aspects that Mongo has, right? Because the relationships requires us to be pulling in information from all these different tables or collections. Whereas if I have an embedded document, right, it's just saying grab that document and give me everything that it has. Now inside that document has all the comments and all the, everything else that I need to add inside of it. Okay, and so I get back this single document, and this single document has all the information, both the title, content, and any comment that gets added to it. Go ahead, Jeff.
So, wait, sorry, did you make a comment schema or no?
No. Inside of my server, right, this is all I have. My comments, and then I defined what each comment should look like.
So, if you were going to try to grab all of the comments that all of the posts that all the users have made, it would be very annoying, right? Or
in this case, we would just grab all the posts, right, and then we'd be able to get all the comments off of that. Right, and so this is one of those, once again, it's a design decision, an architecture decision to say, am I going to ever need to just pull comments? Likelihood is no, right? You're only pulling comments in relation to pulling the posts that correspond to that comment. Now, if it's something where I'm going to say, I'm actually going to need this specific schema independent of anything else, you probably do want to create your own schema for that, right? But in situations like this, right, we want to be able to utilize Mongo's speed by saying, let's embed these documents or use these sub-documents, as they're called, to be able to just directly add them. And then when I pull it, it all maintains the speed without having to pull in all of the associations or all the relationships that it goes with that. Okay. Now, if you want to look up, dive deeper into this, we can go to Mongoose sub documents. There you go. You guys aren't the first ones that we've talked about this. Okay. And so there's lots of things that you can do, right? You can use, where is it? Right, we can actually, there's a function called .id that will pull out a specific subdocument, right? So this parent.children.id, for example, here, I would say something like post.comments.id and then pass in whatever the ID of that comment. And this would return me that one specific comment. Then I can edit it. Now, if I were to edit this comment, what would I then save? All right, if I were to say, excuse me, yeah, so I said one dot, let's say I said one dot name equals something else, my apologies. Then how do I make sure that one gets saved?
You would post.save, right?
Post.save. All right, so remember that all of this is corresponding to this post document. So even if I make changes, right, like here, right, I push this into this comments thing, but what I need to do is make change or save that post so that that updates. Okay, and you can see that there's there's all of this. All right, parent.save. You can actually check to see if the subdocument is a new one. There's an is new as you're doing parent.child.remove. Right, you can find it and then just run remove, and that'll pull that subdocument out, essentially deleting it. So lots of really cool things that you can do while maintaining the idea that we don't want to bog down our Mongo database with lots of relationships. Go ahead, Tim.
With the example they gave whenever we were doing it, they said to use the subdocument as a schema, as a new schema. If you do that and you update the comment, for example, you have to save both the post and the schema?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Go ahead.
In that example that you had just now, it was one.name equals something, whatever, and then you would just say post.save, even though that post isn't really holding.
Because the comment is not it's not like an entity in and of itself.
Right.
It's part of that post. Right? There's no way for me, right, when I come here, there's no way for me to directly access this comment without the post.
Yeah, that makes sense. But then I think what I'm not getting is that one was referring to just that subsection, but then there's no post variable that was referring to the entire thing, right? Or was there?
Oh yeah, it was inside. It was inside this post right here.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So we could. Yeah. So it was. You do have to find the post first in order to even be able to access it. Yeah. All right. So we went over a few things: login registration, as well as a little dive into subdocuments. Any questions about what we've reviewed here?
The subdocs contain the same like type, string, required, true, like all those things. You could just do the same thing there too, right? Okay.
Yeah. You do. There you go. Mongoose validating subdocuments. It is a little bit. It should automatically. When you call model save, subdocument validation is executed as well. Yeah, so you should actually see the same process as far as getting those error messages back.
Okay. So if we want to create our own validation, it's the same method.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you illustrate a little bit about like how to send Flash to the index page?
Yeah, let's actually do that in another one. We've been going for quite a while now, so let's either tomorrow we're gonna do a little bit of a another demo. So let's talk about that tomorrow. Yeah, since we've kind of gone long already.
We also throw in the well, not Flash. With session, it's got 4 parameters that it passes in.
Session has you can actually have in a bunch more parameters. Yeah. All right, so you can come in here and see what all of them mean. If you come down here, for example, name, proxy, resave, save uninitialized, secret, store, unset. Kind of see what each one means. Yeah. Awesome. All right, thanks, guys.